The downfall of Gengeton music by Ongoro reports.
Gengeton artists are now suffering.
Maisha imekuwa ngumu tangu niingie usanii. Maisha imekuwa ngumu. Yeah.
But this was not the case in 2019. Something or someone killed Gengeton. And sadly some people were happy, like this guy. 2 years later, Trace Music East Africa posted this picture on Twitter that said, "Exit Gengeton, enter Amapiano," which in some way was suggesting that Gengeton was dead. And Amapiano was the new
wake up, pray, then hit like you're supposed to do.
Sound in Kenya. Sadly, the Amapiano has also died. According to Miracle Baby, a member of the Sailors Gang that gave us, the death of Gengeton was planned and it never happened naturally. Some people within the industry were not happy that Gengeton was dominant.
Degenerate behavior.
So, kuna wase wanaitwa makatels wakijiita sasa, unaona? Wase wakakaa chini. Wakiwa na huko majuu, kuna time ni genge tu ilikuwa inasikika Kenya. Ni genge ilikuwa inasikika Kenya kila time unanipata. Sasa kuna wase kadhaa wakaungana wakaambia na music yetu tukiwa huku kuna place Africa haifiki. Wapi? Kenya.
And I don't really understand why they were not happy. This was a Kenyan sound. Why don't you support Kenyan?
Kenyan music inaanga tu na shida moja. Inanga nini? Inanga budget enough ya marketing. Watu wanaanza kupractice na marketing yao uone venye nini. For example, budget half ama 3/4 ya music zingine zinatoka huko majuu, especially Nigeria. Au wanakuanga wamekelea marketing to the point that music yote ikitoka kila mtu anajua bana, especially sijakuwa follow up na African music recently. But time yenye ilikuwa ina pop off Amapiano, kumbuka the video amekuwa in the scene for I don't know for how long. Yani imekuwa tu switching. Conspiracy theory, not fact, not proven. Apparently hizi TV stations zinalipangwa na hao wase wa Nigeria kucheza ngoma zao kwa. So unapata kwa ngoma umesikiza. Hii ilikuwa especially true kwa Starboy ile ya the weekend. I don't see the weekend. Something the weekend. Ya Starboy ya Wizkid. Hiyo ngoma nilisikizanga 12 times in a day. So basically almost every hour inachezwa. You get? Ni kitu imelipwa. Also I've heard. I don't know, fact check me.
On the other side, people suspect that Gengeton was killed by COVID-19 or cartels, or Kenyans just got exhausted with that sound and decided to support or listen to Bongo and Amapiano. I bet you have heard people saying that Gengeton music is horrible.
Same for Bongo. Unadhani Wasafi budget yao ya marketing inaongapsa ngapi? Yani nani akidrop video ama akidrop music ama akidrop whatever, uta constant iko everywhere. Sasa support local artists on a very serious note. Lakini pia yeje kile kazi. Tenga budget ya marketing si bure. Ama ufanye kama anahitaji ujamaa video nilikuwa naona juzi. Hata kama alifail, yeye strategy yake ilikuwa kali. Alifanya anahitaji ujamaa. Montero, the gay guy. Lina Sex alifanyanga strategy yake design yenye music zake za kwanza especially zilipop off zilikuwa kama trend TikTok na Twitter, ilikuwa kama music. Ukiwa na ngoma kali unasikia ni ngoma kali, drop snippet. Ikitrend tutatumia kama music video. Hiyo ndio strategy side. That is the game. I've stolen you the game. I've stolen for you the game.
It is dirty and should not be played anywhere. It is so ghetto.
The only problem as a hater that I had with the Gengeton music content, sound iko on point because it was catchy, but sasa content hapo ndo sasa wazazi pia wanakuangalia nini.
And the artists need to work on their image.
To a degree, ukiweza kuweka ngoma zako design yenyewe inaweza sikika everywhere, it will be better for you. a more general audience.
image. A lot of nonsense was said about Gengeton, and to be
Lazima ni promote jamani. Hizi content zake anafaa kuwa na 1 million subscribers sahi. Hizi videos ziko on.
honest, there's some truth to these statements. But does this mean it was that bad? No, because for the longest time, Kenyans have been listening to dancehall and hip-hop.
See? Dance. Ujamaa pesa yake akidrop tu ngoma hivi, kila mtu anajua Conscience alidrop video.
Which were more dirty and more violent than Gengeton. So why was Gengeton punished for sins that other music genres were committing? We will know that today. Remember, you can support this channel in 3 special ways: via subscribing, prayers, and M-Pesa. So choose one.
Subscribing, prayers and M-Pesa. Makofi. Leo. Nenda kutoka maombi. Na nilisubscribe.
Gengeton is not that dead, but you have to be totally drunk to think it is dominant as it used to be. In fact, there's a new sound in town called Urbanton,
Urbanton ndo sasa inapopoka.
Anapenda kuzitoka.
which is
Catchy.
kinda taking over. And will it replace Gengeton? I have no idea. But
Kubanani? Awe niliblock kitambo.
what I know for sure is that Gengeton was better than Urbanton. People argue that, unlike Urbanton, Gengeton had original beats. It was not copying beats from other popular
That's the new problem I have with also Urbanton. Bana najua ni kusample lakini nyinyi mko on point, ni mnaongeza tu 808 hapo juu na drum.
songs, which is, for lack of a better word, copying and pasting.
Exactly.
Over the years,
Control C.
the Kenyan music scene has witnessed a significant shift from genge music, boomba,
WOGs.
kapuka, gengeton, and now Urbanton. We have to appreciate the genge era for putting Kenya
The legends. Mbona nenda ngapi bana? Kama anakula pesa zake pole pole. Ama atatokea tena anza kupatia transformational journey of losing weight. Naona Trevor ni kando na niwa sahi.
on the map.
Meji.
In case you don't know, genge was a term that was coined by Juakali and his team, since Kenya did not have a name for their music. According to Juakali, genge means a group of people, and since their music was loved by many people, they decided to call it genge. They urged other record labels like Ogopa DJs to adopt that name, but they declined
Ogopa DJs ndio ilikuwa imeokoa huyu jamaa. Ndo huyu. Walipatikana juzi.
and ended up calling their music boomba. That's why Issa's music is referred to as boomba. Anyway, the word genge became more popular, and we saw artists like Nonini, Juakali, Madrax, and P-Unit making genge music. Some years later, the Kenyan music scene switched to kapuka
Hizi ni nini? Sababu bado walikuwa wanafanya ngani?
music.
Hizi music videos za hapa jamaa ndo zilikuwa kali. Unapata tu some random things zilikuwa zina happen.
Some years later, the Kenyan music scene switched to kapuka and later into gengeton. Now, the emergence of gengeton music
Okay, kapuka ilikuwa gani jamani? Mimi sijui kapuka.
in 2019 was unforeseen. No one saw it coming. In fact, many Kenyans thought it was a passing glance. Gengeton started out as an underground sound, where young artists would come together and freestyle. A section of the artists managed to record their music, but it was poor quality music, which was not fit to be played on the mainstream media. The buzz around Gengeton first started on Twitter with this video of Swat rapping about Rungu
So matire. Makofi kwake.
and Nduru. I guess you know what that means. The song was called Lamba Lolo, and as we speak, it has 6 million views on YouTube.
Yo,
From there,
million views.
other groups started coming up like Ochungulo Family, Boondocks Gang, Sailors, Wakaliwao, just to mention a few. We also had individual or solo artists like Only Wandelo, Zero Sufuri, and Fatboy Gwash. Gengeton
Mimi nilijezura sufuri ni hip hop artist. Kwani alichange?
artists had one thing in common. Their music was straightforward
Anitangua Zero Sufuri.
and easy to memorize, which captured the attention of young listeners. That's why songs like Wamlambez and Wabebe became popular. Even though it was raw and uncensored, people
It was raw, uncensored, and kept it simple. Hizo ngoma zote zilikuwa tu na catchphrases. Amlambez.
still gave them a chance. The same way Abanton is receiving backlash now, it's the same way Gengeton was being condemned. Most people, especially the old people, argue that the beats were repetitive. The lyrics had no meaning. They only talked about girls, drugs, and senseless things. They liked
Money, drugs, sex. Huh? Money, cars, sex, and drugs. That is the formula for failure. Money, sex. Money, sex, cars, and drugs. The recipe for failure for music. If you can't adapt,
creativity,
get out.
and they had no work ethic. But despite all this backlash, they still managed to produce music that miraculously revived the Kenyan music scene, which was dead at that time. Thank God, Niger and
Degenerate behavior.
Bongo music was silenced for a minute, and I want them to be silenced forever. We're supporting people who don't really support us.
Yes.
Anyway, we
Bongo inazaenda dish.
cannot conclude that Gengeton is dead. There are still artists who produce good Gengeton music, and for you to find it, you'll need to search for it. But since most Kenyans are lazy, we'll continue listening to Niger and watching Afro cinema. And can you really blame Kenyans for not supporting Gengeton? Because they're supporting it when it was coming up. So where did the support disappear to? What really killed Gengeton? According to Jofes from Buzigang, which was and is still one of the
Buzigang ni gani? Mimi sijaisikia hiyo.
most vibrant Gengeton group, he said Kenyan presenters were told not to play Gengeton
from this world, but Buzigang
until midnight hours. Maybe because it was dirty.
Presenters I think presenters are kama ambiwa don't play Gengeton music hadi ifike around 10 ama 11 usiku. Na cheki 11 usiku, 10 usiku, na hata nani usikiza.
And who listens to radio at that time? Maybe your grandmother and your grandfather, and they prefer listening to Mugithi and Rumba, not Gengeton. So this decision affected Gengeton, and also some cartels were blocking Gengeton from receiving airplay. And this is according to Miracle Baby.
Ni watu tu wawili watatu wanakaanga chini wakiwa wamesaidiwa na wase wengine wako huku Kenya. Na nikiweza taja wase wenye walikuwa wamesaidia hawa wase ili wakamwafanyie hivyo, mnaweza shtuka sana. Ni wase hadi mnawa
follow the money, always follow the money.
Another issue was mentorship. Most Gengeton artists were young and they required mentorship, but no one was there to mentor them. Instead,
anasema mentorship na uni Nyashinski kwa hii background ama ni mimi niko zangu. What?
They were fighting them and blocking their music. We cannot really say that Gengeton artists were perfect. Even Jofes admitted that some of the artists had no work ethic. They were lazy, they had no strategy or plan on how to promote their brand and monetize it. Now, another issue was drugs and women. Most of these artists were singing about Matire, Mashada, Kongo, and Punyeto, which is obvious they were using drugs and eating that thing. And it's not really an issue to use a few drugs or love Punyeto. But if they start affecting your business, then it becomes an issue.
Yes, exactly. Money, sex, drugs. Money, sex, drugs, and cars. If something is causing you to sin, cut it off.
Other artists managed to get into record labels like Sailor's Gang, which turned out to be fatal in the long run.
Yes.
And according to Kokos Juma of Sailor's Gang, the record label destroyed their career because they signed contracts without fully understanding what they were signing up to.
Failure number 1. Hivyo tu ndo unajiingiza kwa mtego. Kusoma contract. Hujui hadi inamaanisha nini? Huko tafuta di lawyer jamani. Wewe unataka tu do. Unaambiwa ni 50, unaambiwa unapatiwa deal ya yes please. Director wewe utakuchapa sasa. Roji. Nilikuwa nasema nini? Oh, unaambiwa deal yako itakuwa ya 100 million. Wewe unasikia 100 million unachizi. Umesahau kusema hii 100 million basically venye na working hii 100 million wanakupatia overtime na wanakupatia kama loan ya kuweza kupromote music yako yenye ndio utarudisha eventually na perfect yenye itabaki unafaa ukule, lakini hii ndio tunakushare na percentage za vitu zi make sense. By the end of it all unabaki na pesa yenye ulitumia kwenda show na kutokea, na sometimes hadi ni introduce tena kwa mfuko yako. Dangerous.
Now let's try to understand why Kenyans ignored Gengeton and jumped into Amapiano, which is also dying, and they are now listening to Bongo and
Trend following and trend hopping.
Banton. Psychologically, human beings tend to get tired when exposed to the same thing for a long time. For instance, you can't be eating ugali from Monday to Friday. There's some days you switch to
Well, you can.
rice or chapati if you know how to cook them. The same applies to music. So you cannot blame the audience for choosing Amapiano.
Kama ni pencil unatupa kwa choo unaenda kuchukua bairo.
No. Thousands of songs are being uploaded to Spotify and YouTube every single day.
Yes.
So listeners or Kenyans have a lot of options to choose from. The truth is
Hapo Spotify sasa kama already you listen to kuna fulani nimejaribu kuweka playlist ya Mkenya for some reason nikaletewa UG amlesho hizi ni manini nasikiza hapa.
these Kenyans are the hardest people to impress.
I was
But if you impress them, then you can easily get their love and support. Let's not forget the media, which controls the narrative.
the controls the narrative. Watu ndo nakupotezanga saa zingine.
So if the radio continuously plays Bongo or Amapiano, the audience will automatically assume that's the hottest music and will support it. So I kind of
na vile underground kuna ngoma mingi. Tamu kwanza.
blame our Kenyan media for not fully supporting Gengeton, because if you go to Nigeria
So she's finest. Who remembers this lady?
today, I don't think you'll get any radio station or TV playing Kenyan music. Anyway, I don't get it why our media does that. But the good part is that traditional media did not make Gengeton
High school
popular.
watu wanakula ungori sijana nasema nini. High school watu wanakula ugali daily. Ai? Especially
Gengeton became popular because of the internet. Platforms like Instagram and YouTube made it possible for the artists to post and push their music or
Exactly. Push your own music. Usingoje kukujiwa.
their content. So with all this internet, I don't understand why Gengeton
Machiachi.
is dead. Is it because the artists are lazy, or because they were cancelled as they were
Yes. To a degree, yes. You're not helping your situation.
promoting violence and drugs? Or Kenyans just got tired of Gengeton and switched to Amapiano?
To a degree walikuwa wanatuspam hawa. Sentenced to death. Kenyan woman caught trafficking drugs. Ule fulani alishikwa Vietnam. Those people are not playing. What's the country? They among see huyu. Oh. Kama uziwa Vietnam. Usicheza na Vietnam. He the only country to go on record to ever win a war against America. On record. Haya, iko wapi hiyo video next? The rise and fall of Sailors Gang. Ngori reports once again. Makofi.
They remember about 2019. I'm sure there's one thing they have to mention: Wamlambez and Wamnyonyez. This song was one of the biggest Kenyan hits of 2019, and everyone was shouting Wamlambez and Wamnyonyez. And by everyone, I mean government officials, parents, children, radio presenters, and even foreigners, or we can call them whites.
What the? Wait a minute. Hadi Mudhogo zalifikiwa na hii mambo, wapigiwa makofi.
And even foreigners, or we can call them whites.
Wamlambez.
Even American actor and comedian Jamie Foxx joined the challenge.
Huh?
Then you say wamnyonyezi.
Wamnyonyezi.
Yes.
Wamnyonyezi.
Hadi mliingiza nani? What? Mliingiza Jamie Foxx kwa hii ngori yenyu.
Mlambezi became a national anthem, evolving into a popular greeting. Whenever someone shouted Wamlambezi, the expected response was Wamnyonyezi. The masterminds behind this cultural wave were 5 young men who called themselves Sailors Gang. At one point, the government tried to ban Wamlambezi, saying it was immoral, a move that made the song even more popular. Sailors Gang went on to release other hit tracks like Queen Bee, Nyandus, and Packaging, all of which went viral. However, like many great things, their reign at the top ended in a dramatic and messy fallout. So what went wrong? How did a group that had the whole country shouting Wamlambezi and Packaging
Wakona sponsorship. You read me. Okay. Not sponsored.
end up struggling to stay relevant just a few years later? Let's dive in. Remember to like this video and subscribe for more. Sailors Gang wasn't just a group, it was a whole vibe, made up of Miracle Baby, Shalkido, Lexi Young, Kokos Juma, and Masilva. These boys came together with one mission, to make music and of course become popular. But let's be honest, none of them woke up one morning and said, let's make history. Like most creatives, they were just hustlers looking for a break. Miracle Baby, the lead singer of Sailors Gang, went through a lot of challenges. He moved from being a street urchin or chokora to a construction worker in Denderu, and also worked as a mortuary attendant. His star started shining when he began performing as a Kikuyu stand-up comedian. Shalkido was working in the matatu industry as a tout or kamagera. Kokos Juma began his life as a hairdresser and a broker. Masilva worked as a construction worker in Denderu, and Lexi Young used to sell clothes in Kabuko. Before coming together as a group, each of them was pursuing music individually and would later meet at a youth music event where they decided to team up and form what you know now as Sailors Gang. Miracle Baby, Shalkido, Lexi Young, and Masilva all contributed as singers and rappers, but there was one member who stood out for doing something completely different. Kokos Juma's main work was to shout, yes, just shouting, but it wasn't just random noise. His hype and energy added a different vibe that made their songs even more catchy. Wamlambezi was the first song they recorded, but since they were known and still fresh in the industry, they needed someone to support them and show them the way. So one day, one of the group members, Shalkido, approached radio presenter Mwalimu Rachel at an event. He introduced himself as part of a new group called Sailors Gang, and explained that all they wanted was for Mwalimu Rachel to share their song Wamlambezi on her YouTube channel.
Okay.
Mwalimu Rachel agreed as she wanted to support and empower the young boys.
Okay.
Mwalimu Rachel didn't just post the song on her
W human being.
YouTube channel. She also played it on a radio show. The response was overwhelming. Audiences instantly fell in love with the song, marking the beginning of Sailors Gang rise to fame. Now, you might be wondering, why didn't they just open their own YouTube channel and post the song there? Well, according to Mwalimu Rachel, she actually encouraged them to start their own channel, but they refused, saying that it will take longer to get followers and views. At the time, it seemed like a smart move. After all, they just wanted to get their music out there as quickly as possible.
Ni Sailors wenyewe walikuomba uchukue ngoma yao ya Wamlambezi uiweke kwa YouTube channel
Unajua tu entertainment
yako.
Absolutely.
So it is not you who asked them.
No. Ni wao walikuja na wakaomba vizuri, nikaambia vijana wangu nitawasaidia.
Ukaiweka kwa channel yako.
And by at that time, we are not even talking about management. It was for the love of these boys, the love of the music. They had something.
The love of the game.
And they still do. Amazing, talented young men. And I said, this is the least I could do. But then, YouTube channel. Will I lose anything? No. If anything, maybe I'll gain.
Why didn't you decide to tell them and guide them about opening their own YouTube channel at that time?
They had no idea how to, number one. Number 2, they knew that ile jina ya Mwalimu Rachel pia itawasaidia. Wao kama
Marketing strategy, nice idea.
sailors wangefungua watu hawajui. Unaona?
Understand.
However, this decision would later prove to be a huge mistake, and we'll dive into the consequences of this choice later in the video. Before we talk more about Wamlambezi and how Sailors Gang became famous, let's talk about Gengeton. In 2019, the Gengeton
Anakole jamaa zangu.
became famous. Let's talk about Gengeton. In 2019, the Gengeton genre was just starting to take shape. It was a new sound, but not so different from what Kenyans were used to. It was a blend of genge and dancehall, but with more cheeky and explicit lyrics. Ethic Entertainment and the Boondocks Gang were among the first groups to make this new sound popular, with hits like Lambalolo and Rieng. These songs laid the foundation, and Sailors Gang took it to the next level. Their song Wamlambezi was released in April 2019, and within just a month, it was almost everywhere. It went viral on TikTok, Twitter, and every corner of the internet. The song wasn't just a track, it became a movement, with everyone in Kenya and beyond participating in the Wamlambezi challenge. Even international
Trends. See? Trend hoppers.
comedians and artists like Jamie Foxx and Christina Milian joined in on the challenge.
When we say Wamlambezi, you say Wamnyonyezi, okay?
Wamnyonyezi.
Okay, so we say Wamlambezi.
Wamnyonyezi.
People didn't really care
Care
what it meant. It just sounded good to shout Wamlambezi Wamnyonyezi. But there was one man who thought otherwise. Ezekiel Mutua, the then CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board, who claimed that Wamlambezi was immoral and unsuitable for public consumption.
It's always the old people.
Kenyans, especially on Twitter, were not pleased with the decision to ban the song, and ironically, this likely led to even more people streaming the song.
Mtu mwenye ako in charge hadi ana taste.
But what made Wamlambezi, and by extension, Sailors Gang, so special? Of course, one could say the Sheng slang, the humor, and the cocky attitude.
Yes.
However, in 2019, the Kenyan music industry was not as vibrant. Some say it was kind of dead. Nigerian music and bongo were the dominant genres. But as they say, East, West, home is always the best. Gengeton brought a new vibe that Kenyans, especially the young people, were yearning for. The biggest advantage that Gengeton had was that the songs were in Swahili and Sheng, languages that most Kenyans could easily understand. And after Wamlambezi, Sailors Gang continued making hits. They released songs like Packaging, Queen Bee, Katanisha, and Nyandus. As the buzz around Gengeton grew, big names in Kenya's music scene couldn't resist jumping on the wave. Sailors Gang found themselves collaborating with heavyweights like Octopizzo on a song called Wakeridho.
What is this? What is going on here?
They also did a song with Nadia Mukami, Nitekenye, a song that showcased their versatility, proving that they could blend Gengeton with other songs while maintaining their unique
talent.
sound. All this time, they were managed by Mwalimu Rachel, who played a critical role in keeping the group organized. She handled bookings, logistics, and even negotiated sponsorship deals, ensuring they remained on track.
Sana yenyewe, kasi ya kutuaminia yenyewe. Kila mtu wenyewe chipu, lazima uaminiwe ama aje. Lazima
ni msanii lakini mbona amekapisa na beats. What?
Kila mtu aone light in you. So yeye aliona, and now we pop in sababu yake. Shout out to her.
Sailors Gang had become huge. They were performing at concerts, dominating radio playlists, and landing endorsement deals. For a moment, it seemed like nothing could stop Sailors Gang. They were on every poster, every TV screen, and everyone was discussing Gengeton and Sailors Gang. But as they say, the higher you rise, the harder you fall. And for Sailors Gang, the cracks began to show as early as September 2019. The first major blow came from someone close to them, their manager, Mwalimu Rachel. While she was instrumental in their rise to fame, tensions grew as the group felt that they were being exploited. There are reports that Sailors Gang never signed a formal contract with Mwalimu Rachel, which was their first mistake. But the bigger mistake was allowing all their music to be uploaded to Mwalimu Rachel's YouTube channel. The fallout reached a boiling point during the pandemic, when the group signed to a different record label without consulting their managers.
They promised them many things. Na hapo ndio Peter, Miracle Baby as the leader of the group, akaenda. Kakaa chini na wao. Without my knowledge, without my company's knowledge, signed a deal with them. And I didn't know about this until the representative of this record company came up to me and told me, by the way, ni signed deal and it's done. Vijana, ni sisi sasa tuna wafanyia hii maneno.
Mambo yako, zangu.
I was hurt. As someone who has put.
It's okay. 20 feet bana. Go.
In retaliation, Mwalimu Rachel allegedly withheld access to the YouTube channel, which had all their previous songs and millions of video views. She demanded over 1.5 million to release the account passwords,
Hiyo ni pesa bana. Wewe account password si ownership.
Claiming the group owed her money for the investments she'd made in building their brand. The group also accused her of sabotaging their progress and exploiting their innocence. What followed was a messy public fight that played out across social media, with some Kenyans, especially Sailors fans, demanding Mwalimu Rachel to hand over their passwords. At first, Sailors Gang thought that joining a new record label would improve things. However, things got much worse.
Maisha imekuwa ngumu tangu niingie usanii. Maisha imekuwa ngumu. Yeah.
Na ebu niulize, maisha yameanza kuharibika, ni tangu mkue signed under record label ama kumekuwa na nini?
Zote, yani unashindwa kwani government, kwani vijana, yani tulifanya ngani?
Government gani na wewe mwenyewe ukuangalia. Unajua hii ground vitu wenye watu wanafaa realize ni kila mtu anajiangalilia, na ukosa ku look out for yourself utabaki umefanywa mbaya. Like niliuliza juzi, nani Kenya kuna pesa mingi anakuambia nipatie kidogo nikuongeze nyingine, na kama hataki
nini, vijana akikuja kujinua anapigwa. Si management, si rebo,
si wazee wenye wako industry na wamekataa kuretire. Watu waretire bana, tunataka sura mpya kwa hizo vitu.
The international record label they signed with promised monthly payments, free studio sessions,
international
and video production. But this came with many conditions that restricted the group's creative freedom. Members began to feel trapped, leading to frustration, emotional distress, and eventually, the group split. Mwalimu Rachel later claimed that their downfall was self-inflicted, insisting that she won them
record company, record label came in and promised them good things. Tutalipia rent, tutapatia pesa.
Aside from the COVID-19 crisis and the fight with their manager, it's impossible to talk about the collapse of Sailors Gang without addressing the bigger picture, the decline of Gengeton itself. By 2021, the genre that was once so popular was losing its spark. Some people argued that it had become repetitive, with most songs sticking to the same formula of explicit lyrics and the same beats. Fans now began craving something new, and artists from other genres like Sauti Sol and Calligraph Jones filled the gap.
Kwa hiyo vijana wa siku hizi wanaimba kuhusu bangi,
kunyandana, kuua mabiti. Hizo vitu ngapi?
Vitu vitatu. Bangi, kunyandua na kuua biti,
na kipewa bita na ua,
na kuulewa pombe.
Kulewa kabisa.
Sailors Gang was actually evolving, collaborating with different artists and experimenting with various sounds. But after joining this new label, their releases became less frequent, and when they dropped a song, it failed to match the magic of their earlier songs. Imagine having songs with millions of views but not owning them. You can't access them, and even worse, being controlled by the label. It was frustrating. Lex Young even said that some big artists in the industry took advantage of them, and some even stole their songs.
Khaligraph Jones, Mwizi.
Mwizi? Mwizi wa nini tena? Mulifanya song na Khaligraph na kutoka? Mungefanya kwanza right.
Apparently mse alitumiwa ngoma akaifanya yake.
So what happened to the members of Sailors Gang? After the group split, each member went their separate ways. Miracle Baby and Shalkido ventured into a different genre, moved from Gengeton to Mugithi. Lex Young found Jesus and tried to reinvent himself as a gospel artist, a move that
he got the national neck. He got the united neck, that patriotic neck. Say no to neck.
Raised eyebrows, given the group's controversial past. But anyway, Jesus saves everyone and anyone. Masilva occasionally releases new music, but the songs aren't as big or exciting as those from Sailors Gang. Cocos Juma stayed out of the spotlight, and no one really knows what happened to him.
That is the plan. That is the way you go about it.
Him after the group split. As for Gengeton,
Twitch inafanya though.